Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Trend Report. I'm glad you're joining us today for what I know is going to be a really informative and fun conversation with our guest today, Vipul. Vipul, how are you today?
I am great. How are you?
I am doing awesome. So I didn't really introduce you. I just said your first name. Please take a
Yeah.
moment and introduce yourself and tell our listeners who you are and what you do.
So Vipul Bhagat, I am Chief Operating Officer of Skyline Design. I have been with the company now for almost 29 years. We're in January going to be 40 years old as a company. We're privately owned. We continue to be that way. I am actually in the process of becoming one of the owners of the company. With the long tenure that I've had, this is pretty much all that I know how to do.
That's
And
awesome.
so I've decided I'm going to keep doing it for the time being.
Well,
Um,
congratulations to you. That's
Thank you.
exciting. 40 years old. That's also something to celebrate. When actually is the 40th anniversary?
It will be in January
Awesome. That's great.
of next year. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Skyline Design. I was reading up on you guys just a little bit, and tell us a little bit about how you started and how you got
Sure.
to what it is you do today.
So the company, when it started, was started by Charles Rizzo and Nick Corriero. They are the founders of the company. They still have a little bit of an active role, not necessarily in day-to-day operations, but they're certainly involved in the business financially, and they support me while I'm running it for them. Um, they started the business in many different mediums, not just glass. We're known as a glass company today, but Nick and Charlie, when they started the business back in the 80s, they were using of sculpture, art. The company was comprised of a lot of artists back then, doing thematic work. We did a lot of hospitality and retail work. If you remember back to when the Luxor Hotel opened back in the 90s in Las Vegas, they had all of those gold leaf mummies and whatnot. And so Skyline did all those. There was
Oh,
about 30 or
wow.
40 of them, big ones spread out through the casino and the lobby, and that was all work that was done here in our factory in Chicago, made by artisans, all
That's
done by
awesome.
hand. It was all foam sculpted, uh, uh, clay, hand painted, hand gold leaf. So that's the kind of work that Charlie started with, and glass was one of the mediums along with that. And over the course of the last probably 25 years, we shifted towards more and more glass. So glass became an important part of our business. We tend to stay in the contract side of things, commercial, corporate, that kind of work. Um, but yeah, so they are artisans in their own right. They hired artisans. My background is in architecture, so I am not necessarily a finance guy or a management guy. I pretty much learned everything here on the fly. They taught me everything that I know.
That's
They're my
awesome.
mentors, and yeah, and so that's our gig.
So, I love the fact that every company has roots in something, right? And they started somewhere, especially companies that are celebrating 40 plus years in business have a story. So I appreciate you sharing the story. The next time I walk through the Lux Hotel in Las Vegas, I'm going to have a connection to that. And I think that's
Sure.
really unique. But let's talk for a minute about glass. Now, you're
Mhm.
using glass as a broad term, but you're doing writable glass, architectural glass. So give us a little bit more definition about the types of products that you sell, please.
Sure. So, like I said, about 25 years ago, we made the decision to go strictly into the architectural glass field. We had a lot of these artisans hand making a lot of the decorative glass that we made back then. We still do some handwork now, but that business evolved. It just grew. We were doing super high end custom work for lobbies, for hospitality, and that turned into, as the world as technology advanced and the world became more sophisticated, we were able to kind of move upwards in how we work. So we started buying more and more glass fabrication equipment. Most of our equipment comes from Europe. So it's some of the finest glass fabricating and decorating apparatuses that you can get. So we've got a lot of stuff here from Italy and Germany and Switzerland, and so there's a melting pot of machines in here that we've put our time and money into to create all the cool things that we do. And out of that is coming glass boards and other vertical markets. So we're in the process of kind of a growth trend when it comes to doing glass boards. I'm sorry. That business has been growing. So in the last 3 years, I would say it's about 25 to 30% of our business now, along with our custom architectural work.
That's excellent. So, well, people need writable surfaces. You see them all over the place. I have one in my office. I mean, we love writable surfaces, be able to visually see things, right? So, and I think it's really interesting that it is 25 or 30% of your current volume. Where do you anticipate it going? Like, what percentage are you trying to get to with the writable type materials?
Actually, just a couple of years ago, we were about 5%. I'm quite happy with where we are. I like to keep our company diverse, right? I don't want to have my hands in one pot necessarily. There's a lot of different ones out there. Healthcare is a very strong market for us vertically. That's about 45% of our business. So we've grown that considerably. Nice. We're pretty much the premier decorative glass provider for healthcare projects nationally. So that's something we're putting a lot of effort in. So, the glass boards are important in healthcare, the custom work. Glass is the only non-porous surface material that you can get. And so that leads into hygiene and housekeeping and keeping things clean. And, in today's world, right, in the last 2-3 years, we're all concerned about, being around people, and,
absolutely.
with masks, without masks, vaccinated, unvaccinated, there's all kinds of, it takes all of us to kind of run everything here. And so we have to figure out how to make environments make sense, right? And usable. And so, my feeling is I want to cover the whole world in glass, right? Obviously.
Of course, you're a glass manufacturer. I would expect nothing less.
Yeah, everything should be glass.
Absolutely. That's great. We certainly, in the last few years, redefine the word cleanability, I would say, and the importance of something being able to really, really be cleaned effectively for lots of various different reasons. But I want to go back for just a second. You talked about equipment that you're using and going to Italy and to Europe to get machinery, which is not uncommon in our industry. I mean, having worked for several manufacturers, I know there's a lot of German machinery and things of that nature there. But tell us about that investment and what that journey's been like in bringing in, because you're based in Chicago, if I read correctly, you're in a building that was built in the 1920s, right, in a suburb, a little small community outside of Chicago. So I know there's had to be some interesting conversations about modern day machinery into a 1920s building.
Yeah, so our building is really, it's been a lot of different things. It's been a bicycle company. The Monarch Bicycle Company was in here. We understand Sears used it as a warehouse, so before Amazon existed and all the Amazon warehouses that are going up everywhere, white buildings with the blue stripe at the top, right? This was a Sears property many years ago. So in the 100 years, it's been a lot of things. We are still in the city of Chicago. We're within the city limits. We're not downtown. We're about 15 minutes away from the city. So that's kind of an important part of our day-to-day work, is that we're close to the things that we do, where our work goes. And we've had to adapt all the things that we do to fit in this building. And that's not easy, right? We have really big pieces of equipment. Our tempering oven can do 96 inch by 144 inch pieces of glass. So how do you get that size piece of glass into a building, right? So we had to open up the side of the building and put in larger overhead doors and special cranes and special forklifts so that all of that material can be brought in here safely on top of it, right? Safety is a huge part of our daily work. Guys that are working in the factory, we have over 60 of them now, and they need to not get hurt. That's an important, that's our priority. And so, bringing that work in here, yeah, I mean, it's been a challenge, but that's the cool part of being here. The challenges are what makes it fun.
Oh, and in our industry, there are challenges that exist on all different levels,
Every
right?
day.
Every day. So, being in the Midwest, obviously you have resources in West
Mhm.
Michigan that a lot of other manufacturers tap into. But I mean, obviously, I get why you're in Chicago. That's where the founders were, and that's where you stayed. But what has it been like for you guys as it relates to sourcing materials in the Upper Midwest?
That is a great question. So our largest, the most, the biggest thing that we buy is obviously raw glass.
Hmm.
So we don't make glass. Glass is made with sand, cullet, broken glass.
Okay.
That is made at a facility in Pennsylvania. We work with Vitro Architectural Glass. They're one of the world's largest glass manufacturers in the world. They have been our provider for many, many years. So we're kind of a single source.
Hmm.
Uh, Most of our glass is low iron. Vitro's low iron product is Starfire, and we like to maintain consistency.
All right.
So
So I
we
have a
get all
couple
of
of
our,
questions for you.
yeah,
I know the answer, but I'm not sure all of our audience and
please, yeah.
listeners know the answer. So, raw glass, meaning big sheets of glass, you're buying from Vitro in Pennsylvania. They're
Mm-hmm,
shipping it to you, and then
mm-hmm,
you take it and transform it into your architectural product or your glassboard product.
correct.
But explain low iron and what does that mean and why is that important?
Great question. So low iron for interior decorative purposes is really for color consistency. Normal glass, regular glass, plate glass, it has a green hue to it, as
Mhm.
everyone knows. So when we do our work, which has a lot of color in it, when we're back painting for the whiteboards or when we're digitally printing photographic images,
Mhm.
that green will transfer through because a lot of the work that we do is seen through the glass. So you're looking at the clear surface of a piece of glass, and then the decorating is usually on the opposite side. With low iron Starfire product, there's almost no green in it. The clarity is there, right? The optical clearness that's needed to have those colors be, the reds are reds and the blues are blues, and that's an important part of what we do. So we have to. So I would say 90% of the product that goes through here is low iron Starfire
Yeah, that's great.
because of the nature of what we do. Yeah.
Well, and I think you explained it really well for those people that didn't understand what low iron means in the
Mm-hmm.
comparison of, I mean, if you painted something cherry red that was on not low iron glass, it's going to be cherry red with a green tint. But the
Which
low
is
iron glass
brown,
is like
which is
really
probably
cherry.
like a yeah. If you mix red and green together, I think you get brown as the color. You
Okay,
get
that's
that.
more advanced than I know.
And you know what? We're working with some of the firms that we work with out there. They're demanding
Mhm.
exactness and accuracy, and then
Yeah.
so we have to do that. We've been doing that for a long time. We know how to fulfill those kinds of things.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about the component of the industry that you're in is how we've seen over the last 10 or 15 years how architects and designers are using glass in the building design and construction that we had not seen previously. For example, lining a wall with a patterned glass or putting back painted glass on a wall in a hallway and things of that nature around elevator banks and things of that nature. It's been really interesting to see
Mhm.
how they're taking that medium glass and using it in the aesthetic features of the interior of a building. And you're responding to that with the right kind of product, back painted pretty much any color that you want. And then you've
Yep.
got your custom designed architectural glass. And I noticed on your website, you have a host of designers that have designed patterns for you. So talk about that process with us.
Yeah, so when you have a wall of clear glass, you have no privacy, right?
Sure.
Unless you're going to put in, what I would say is not the most beautiful blinds or shades or what have you, right? So we come in with, of course, obviously a different methodology, right? Let's decorate that glass. Let's put something on there that's bespoke, that's branded, that makes sense to your aesthetic, to the space, the folks that are going to ultimately work in those spaces, right?
Hmm.
we make it to fit the needs, right, of architects, designers, end users. And as far as our collaborative efforts, that's something that no other decorative glass company, I would say, even in the world, has. We've spent the last 25 years really curating the architectural, the design, the art world for some of the best designers. You know, we're going out into Europe now, which is, I'm even surprised that we're able to do some of the things that we are, right? We're able to go to Europe and get some of these folks that are, you know, not even famous here yet, you know, and they will be, right? So you've got Patricia Urquiola, who is now part of Hayworth, right?
Yep.
So we had Patricia before Hayworth had her, right? And
That's awesome.
she was new then, and so we have a line of patterns with her. We have Scholten and Bangs out of Amsterdam. We have the Burlek brothers out of Paris, France, and so having those kinds of collaborative efforts are really they've taken us up a notch in what we can offer.
That's great. So, one of the things that I get asked a lot about from our listeners, in fact, I
Mhm.
got an email about it from a listener the other day, was to really get our manufacturers that we interview to talk a little bit more about sustainability and the importance of sustainability and maybe some steps that you're doing to help the environment. So, tell us what your position is on sustainability and maybe some of the unique things you guys are doing.
Well, the biggest thing is that we're using glass as our medium, and
Hmm.
glass is recyclable all the way around, right? Uh, Really, you can, you know, I don't want to say you just throw it in the garbage, but you kind of could, and it's gonna, you know, it's not going to affect the environment in a negative
Hmm.
way, right? So that's kind of the main point, and then it's how we make the product here. It's our processes. We use paints that have no VOCs, right? They're water based. We recycle all of the water that our equipment uses. We uh, have studies done on our lighting in our facility so that we're not wasting energy. Those are the kinds of things that, you know, there's a whole slew of them. We can have a podcast just on, you know, the 100 things that we do here
Hmm.
to you know, keep things neat and clean, right, for the environment.
Sure.
Yeah,
So, talk for just a minute, Vipul, if you don't mind, about recycling water and what it is. So, tell us where water's used in your manufacturing process
sure.
and then how you're recycling it.
Right. So water is used in our paint department.
Hmm.
Obviously, water-based paints. That's how
Sure.
we clean. But you know, they do get the water doesn't come back out as water. There's other things in there from the
Sure.
paint. All of our fabrication equipment, like our polishing machine, our CNCs, routers, our water jet machines, all use water. And
Okay.
that water is recycled in a reclaiming system. So this is something that not all glass fabrication companies have. So this was an additional investment that we put in. We put it in right away. We
Hmm.
didn't do it, you know, a year after we set up the equipment. We had that machine purchased along with the other ones. And so what happens is there's, you know, there's media in the water,
Hmm.
right? The paint or the cerium oxide that mixes with the polishing compounds that we use. But all of that stuff is recycled, and then it removes the waste particles, and then we can properly dispose of them, whether we recycle those or have somebody come pick it up,
Hmm.
what have you, right? And so we make a conscious effort to make sure that we're not wasting. Uh,
So,
raw
you've got
material.
a like a centrifuge machine, and
Yeah,
it
it's exactly
takes
that.
and it
Yeah,
separates the chemicals and the paint and the stuff, and then
exactly that. Yeah.
it pushes out clean water. So, what would happen if you were just disposing of the water? Like, where would it go? Just like go into the street, into this drainage
Yeah, I mean,
system
I
in
guess people
Chicago?
just dump it in the sewer. Yeah,
Right.
right,
Yeah. And then we
right.
know where
It just,
that ends up, likely in a river
yeah,
or a
no,
lake or something like
right.
that.
And then it
Okay.
ends up where it shouldn't,
So,
right?
what I think is important about this is that you're using a natural resource in the manufacturing of your product.
Correct.
And, you know, in some places in the world, water is very scarce, right? We also know what it's been like. I mean, I live in Texas and, you know, we went 67 days without rain this
Yeah.
year. And so it is a precious resource. So you're taking it, you're using it in your manufacturing in multiple areas of your manufacturing. Then
Correct.
you're cleaning it and you're taking the debris out of it. And then you're taking that debris and you're recycling it, or you're having someone come pick up the debris to dispose of it properly.
Correct.
So what happens to the water then? Now you've got clean water again. So what happens to, is it, I don't know, is it classified clean water? What's it actually classified once you clean
I
it?
don't think it has a, we might not be able to answer that from a technical standpoint,
Okay.
but
Above my pay grade, that's for sure. That's what I
yeah,
was
right.
asking. So,
We just keep reusing it.
okay. So you reuse it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
We're reusing.
fantastic.
So it's separating the materials, and then that water is running through that centrifuge, right? That's
Mhm.
what's cleaning it. And then there's a tank that it puts it back into so that those machines can then bring back that water. Yeah.
That's fantastic because
Yeah. So we're
then,
bringing in very little additional new water every
yeah,
day, right? As it,
mhm,
of course, the water evaporates after time, and
sure it does. Yeah.
things get, but we're not using brand new water every day, right? There's a tank that holds the dirty water. There's a tank while it goes through the centrifuge. Then there's a tank that holds the clean water and gets reused.
Okay. I really appreciate how you describe that, because I think it's important for our listeners to understand. It's hard when you're either watching on YouTube or, listening to this on a podcast to
Yeah,
truly understand the manufacturing process. But the way that you described it, I think is perfect. And I think it really, really addresses an important conversation as it relates to how we as an industry are contributing to a better environment. You're using limited water, you're recycling it, you're reusing it, you're only disposing of and properly disposing of the waste that comes from it. And it shows that as a leader in our industry, are being a good steward of natural resources in our
absolutely.
environment.
That's very, very important to the founders. It's very,
Mhm.
very important to me. It's how I, leave things for my kids and other people's
Mhm.
kids, and what they're going to do with it. Hopefully, they'll have the wherewithal to continue our.
Mhm.
I wish more people did it, and we do that with all of our raw materials. Our paints are not thrown out. We have a methodology where we can clean it up, put it back in the can, and if
Mhm.
they do need to be disposed, we can dispose of them properly. Our another area where we look at is our yields on our glass sheets. So the glass sheets come in about 10 foot by 14 foot approximately, and once they're optimized and cut from, there's always going to be leftovers, right? There's
Mhm.
extra. So we like to keep as much as we can, some of the big stuff, and then we can use it on projects. And then we use others for samples. And then we recycle the rest of the glass. So we have a special company that then uses it for landscaping and road work. And you can look up all kinds of
That's great.
uses for broken glass
Mhm.
out there. But yeah, so we try to use everything we can to the fullest,
Yep.
right, and to its limits before we dispose of it or have to get rid of it. But there's very
So
little left by the time we do that.
it's an important conversation about you're using
Absolutely.
100% or as much as close to 100% of the product as you possibly can,
Right.
because there was a time in our industry when we did the yield of the sheet of whether it was glass or plywood, and then we just
Mm-hmm.
tossed it in a bin and
Oh
somebody
yeah.
came and picked it up and hauled it off. Now you're using it to make other projects with, you're using it to make samples with,
Mm-hmm.
and then what is left, what small component is left, you're recycling it because glass has lots of options for second life. So
Right.
important
Right.
conversations.
And so we separate that, right? We have a bin just for that,
Hmm.
and that gets hauled away separately,
Yeah,
right?
that's great.
So that's a big part of our, and that's a process we put in when we started fabricating glass about 6 years ago. So it wasn't like, again, like with the centrifuge, right? We didn't put it in after the fact. Like we thought of these things. Hey, we're going to have all of this glass waste. What do we do with that?
Hmm.
Right? Where are we going to put that stuff? We're just going to throw it in the dumpster with everything else. And we did the research. When we ordered the equipment, it took a year to get it all because it
Hmm.
all has to be made and manufactured and shipped here and set up. And while we were waiting for it, we said, let's figure out what we're going to do with all of the leftovers and extras and what have you, right? And all that stuff, we had it set up. I mean, that was an important part of our business. One of the other things, and I even said to you before we started the discussion today was, I invited you to visit me here. we're very transparent to everyone, right? We have a video on YouTube that we show of our factory. We invite people here. Like we don't, there's nothing to hide in our factory. We want to show you how we manufacture. We're very proud of what we do and how we do it. And, so we bring people in here all the time and give them tours. And, of course, they're astonished. We have 150,000 square foot manufacturing space. That's like, for me, like a big laboratory, if you will. Right. That's the fun part about me being here every day is I get to, think about cool new things and how we develop, different new products.
So it would be really interesting to bring in somebody from the factory and ask them about your fun ideas and what they think about your brainstormings that you come up with.
Yeah. We have a product development person and I've got him now, like, he can't wait. He gets text messages from me on Sunday night, like, hey, tomorrow, don't forget, I want to talk to you about this, that, and the other, and then I want to try this stuff. So, right, he knows where I'm at first thing.
That's great. Oh my goodness. So, I've really enjoyed learning all about your business and what you guys are doing and how you're doing it. I think, keystones for me, domestic sourcing, kudos to you, all of you, and your commitment to sourcing domestically, because it's real easy and a lot more cost effective to go buy containers worth of glass from other parts of the world, right?
Well, and so I'd like to speak to that a little
Sure.
bit. We have good relationships with our vendors. We consider them partners. We're very cognizant of their capabilities, right? So, when everyone around us has been saying there's, logistic issues, there's material issues out there in the world. We don't have those because we are ahead of it, right? I order well in advance. I hate to say it this way, but we pay our bills and, we have good relationships. I mean, sometimes the simplest things matter, and you kind of stay ahead of that and you can overcome those challenges. So, we, during COVID, right, when it happened in March of 2020, it was a hard year for us, right? We had some attrition in our staff. Everybody was confused, didn't know what the world was like, but it took us about a year. So once the year got past us, we were all back in the factory and figuring out how to do it, and we did it, right? And so I'll speak to our lead times, right? You can follow us on all of our social media. We post a lot, and how our lead times are still great, right? We're pretty much beating the competition. Our pricing is very competitive. And then, of course, our quality. That's 40 years, right? We don't skip any steps here.
That's great.
And that's what matters.
Well, I think my biggest takeaway from what you just said was, even in the world of corporate America, I mean, and we think corporate America, we think big corporate America, but even in the corporate America in the office furniture industry, if you will,
right,
we're still people doing business with people.
Yeah.
And you have transparent partnerships, long-term relationships with your key vendors. They know each other. You guys know each other. If they need something, they're going to call you. You need something that you're going to call them. And you're not just a customer number 6842 or some crazy something like that, right?
And I and my management team have personal relationships with these folks, right? We can reach out at any time for anything. And that's how we like to run our business, right? Yeah. It's not as a business. And I think that's important, right? To maintain those relationships. I mean, that's our reputation and our relationships is what's gotten us to the 40 years.
And I believe it's what's going to help carry us through.
Yeah. And I'm ready to get to 50 and 60 years, right? I'm here for the long haul. And, that's what we want to do. We want to run it this way, right? We're not trying to grow too big. We like what we have. We're very fortunate to be in the position that we are, and we want to maintain that and grow it a little bit, take care of our employees. Those are the folks that matter. We're close to 100 people on our staff, and the people that work here are what the company is made of.
That's fantastic. So I got one final question for you.
Absolutely.
Tell us just a little bit about your thoughts about the future of our industry. Now, that's a really big question.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's another podcast, maybe. I don't know.
It really is. I have a couple of upcoming episodes on the future. I've got a couple of dealers coming in, talking about the
Yeah.
future of the dealer, but I'm just interested in general. What do you feel the future is like for our industry?
So I'm gonna use a word that doesn't fit well right now because everybody gets kind of negative thoughts. But my goal is to make our company recession proof,
Hmm.
right? How do we do that? So it's through diversification, right? Like when you asked me earlier, are you okay with your glass boards business being about 25%? I'm actually very happy with that. I don't if it's not any more than that, but our business grows relatively across the board and it stays at 25, well, then that's fine, right? We're in the healthcare markets. We're getting into more higher education. We're getting into e-platforms that'll be coming up soon. So we have some opportunities out there to be diverse in the kind of work that we do so that we can grow. And like I said it in our last thing, we're pretty content with what we have,
Hmm.
right? I have everything that I feel like we've been successful already, right? And so anything we get more out of this is just icing on the cake.
Key term takeaway for me. Thank you for that answer, by the way. I appreciate that
Sure.
very much. I don't like that R word. I think we sometimes can talk
I know,
ourselves
I know.
into that, right?
Yeah, I know.
So
I'm
I
gonna
won't
do
repeat
everything
it.
I can to prevent it.
Me
Myself,
too.
all by myself.
Me too. But the key takeaway for me is, and this applies to anybody that is joining us today, whether they're a manufacturer, regardless of their size, an independent rep, a dealer, a designer, this applies across the board in our industry, which is diversification.
Right,
Diversify your offering, diversify your services, diversify your products in order to to get greater reach within your customer base, whichever one of these people that you are in our industry.
right.
Diversify is key. And actually I should have another podcast about just diversification because it's
Yeah,
so very important
absolutely.
to diversify. So thank you for sharing that, Vipul. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you join us today. We actually met for the first time in real life at Neocon. It was great to meet you
Yeah.
there, see your showroom. Really good stuff that you guys are doing. If our community would like to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
So our website, obviously, the easiest and fastest way, www.skydesign.com. It's spelled just like it sounds. Our phone number is 888-278-4660. And we're here waiting for you.
That's awesome. So in the show notes, we will drop a link to the website, phone number, contact
Awesome.
information for you, as well as your LinkedIn profile, company LinkedIn profile as well,
Wonderful.
so that everybody has it. Again, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it
Thank you,
very
Sid.
much. Guys, go out there and make today great, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Take care, everyone.